You were never meant to understand the universe only to survive within its illusion. But now that you're here, wide-eyed in the dark, let us begin the peeling. This is not a story, and it is certainly not a dream. This is the erosion of everything you thought was real. 1. The lie of the self you believe you are a you, that there is some central observer, a unified being behind your eyes, orchestrating your choices, interpreting your thoughts, directing your path. You call it a soul, or a mind, or consciousness. But this assumption that you are a continuous, self-directed entity is not only unproven, it is incompatible with everything we know about the structure of your brain, the history of your ideas, and the trajectory of your evolution. Begin not with mysticism, but with neuroscience. The pioneering work of Benjamin Libet in the 1980s, now replicated and expanded many times over, showed that your brain initiates actions before you are consciously aware of making a decision. Measurable neural activity and electrical readiness potential appears hundreds of milliseconds before you believe you've chosen to act. By the time you think you've decided, the decision has already been made, buried in the silent machinery of your cortex. If you were a conscious driver, why do you keep discovering where you're going only after you've arrived? But maybe the self exists not in decision, but in memory. That's comforting, isn't it? That your past is a straight, unbroken thread stitched through time. But even that thread is frayed, looped, falsified. Memory is not a recording. It's reconstruction, vulnerable, malleable, frequently incorrect. The work of Elizabeth Loftus showed how easily false memories can be implanted. Entire events, entire relationships, entire violations fabricated in therapy. Reinforced by suggestion, believed with the conviction of lived truth. Your past is a riddle you keep solving backward. Split-brain patients, those whose corpus callosum has been severed, offer a window into your illusion. When stimuli are presented to only one hemisphere, each half of the brain behaves as if it is its own entity. One side can laugh at something the other cannot explain. One hand can act against the will of the other. And when asked why they did something, the verbal hemisphere invents reasons with absolute confidence, despite having no access to the information that caused the action. This is the narrating self, not a director, but a press secretary. You are a series of modules, disjointed processes, haphazardly coordinated by language. You speak of I, but the I is a myth and afterthought of speech, a story your mind tells itself to make sense of chaos. Daniel Dennett called it the center of narrative gravity, not a substance, but a convergence of stories. And what are stories but approximations, distortions? Every moment of continuity you feel is a hallucinated bridge between fragments. Even your body does not obey this myth. Your gut has more neurons than a cat's brain. It produces neurotransmitters, makes decisions, sends signals upward. Who's really in charge of thoughts or your bacteria? But the most intimate betrayal of self is the constant inconsistency of your values. You think you have principles, preferences, a moral compass. Yet in the right context, under stress, in groups, when told by authority figures, you abandon them without noticing. Milgram's obedience experiments, the Stanford prison study, the Ash conformity trials. You'll electrocute a stranger, imprison a peer, say the sky is green just because others tell you to. And after, you'll justify it seamlessly, convincingly, proudly. You are a puppet who insists the strings are just part of your personality. Even your internal voice, that comforting monologue you mistake for the real you, is an echo chamber. It is formed from language given to you by others, from scripts inherited through culture, from symbols you never chose. Thought is not. Pure it is language coded through history. Would you think the same thoughts if you were born in 500 BCE, in a Siberian tribe, in a deaf body, without speech? Then who are you, really? Some say consciousness is proof of the self, but consciousness itself is fragmented, momentary, flickering. The illusion of continuity comes from working memory holding your attention long enough to bridge a gap. You are a strobe light, not a flood lamp. Blink fast enough, and you think you're whole. What does it mean to call yourself you if no one part of your brain contains you? If no memory is stable, if no value is fixed, if no story is true, if no thought is original? What is left once you remove the narrative, the body, the decision, the history, the language? Perhaps it's comforting to say, I am more than the sum of my parts. But what if you're not even equal to the sum? What if the sum is less than the parts? What if all that's left when we subtract the illusion isn't mystery, but absence? And when the voice in your head falls silent, who is it that's listening? Time was never what you thought. You wake up each morning convinced that yesterday was real and tomorrow is coming. That time moves forward in a straight, steady line. That you are riding this invisible conveyor belt from the past into the future. This belief that time flows, the most natural assumption in the world. It is also the most dangerous lie you've ever swallowed. Physics does not recognize the flow of time. It sees only relations, not directions. The equations that govern our universe, the Schrödinger equation, Maxwell's equations, the laws of classical mechanics, even Einstein's field equations, are time symmetric. They do not care whether time moves forward or backward. There is no inherent arrow, no built-in now. The universe does not tick, it just is. You feel time because your brain edits experience to fit a linear narrative. You register a change, then call it a moment. You perceive difference and call it motion. But what if there are no moments, only your illusion of stitching one perception to the next? What if the universe isn't moving, but you are being played back? Einstein himself called the distinction between past, present, and future a stubbornly persistent illusion. In the block universe model, the most widely accepted interpretation of relativity, past, present, and future all coexist. Every moment of your life is already out there, like locations on a map. You are not moving through time. You are a smear across it. You have already died. You have already been born. You just can't see the rest of yourself. What then is the present? Neuroscience suggests it's a trick. Your brain lags behind reality by about 500 milliseconds. That's half a second of buffering before you are allowed to be here. But even that delay is not stable. In split-second situations, your perception rewrites the order of events to fit your expectations. A flash of light and a sound, your brain will reverse which came first if it serves coherence. Time, to you, is not a fact. It is a hallucination your mind renders in post. We already know time slows down when you move faster. GPS satellites have to be corrected daily because their clocks tick differently than those on Earth. This isn't science fiction, it's operational necessity. Your phone couldn't function without accounting for the relativity of time. But if time can move slower, what makes you think it moves at all? Quantum mechanics further distorts the lie. In quantum entanglement, two particles, light apart, affect each other instantaneously. No time passes between them. Cause and effect fracture. There is no before, no after, just correlation. This violates every intuitive understanding you have about how time is supposed to work. And yet, it's experimentally verified, again and again. And what about the arrow of time you cling to, the one that tells you broken things stay broken, that memory moves in one direction, that entropy rises? Yes, entropy increases, but why? Not because of time, but because we remember low entropy states, because our brains evolved to store order, not disorder. You see a glass shatter, but not reassemble, and you think that means time flows. But what if it only means you are tuned to watch collapse? The arrow of time might be nothing more than the arrow of memory, a byproduct of cognition, not a property of reality. Your body moves forward, but the atoms that make you have no such direction. They were here long before your shape assembled. They will be here long after. The particles in your hand may have once been in the heart of a star, the lung of a mammoth, the fin of a prehistoric shark. These molecules don't care what decade you assign them to. And if particles do not age, what does? Your culture tells you that time heals, that change is constant, that progress is linear. But civilizations rise and collapse in cycles. Ideas are rediscovered after being buried. Technologies vanish and re-emerge. The spiral of history mocks your straight lines. You live inside a loop, but call it a march. You are haunted by ghosts. You renamed as ancestors. Even your thoughts are not timely. You believe you just had that idea, but how long had it been circling beneath awareness? You think you were thinking now, but your words come from moments ago, and that moment too is gone before it's registered. You are always late to your own experience. Now ask, if the future already exists, if the past is still real, and if the present is a mirage constructed by delayed neurons and faulty predictions, then where exactly are you? And if you are nowhere in time, when are you? 3. The language that owns you, you believe. You speak language, but language speaks you. You think in words, express yourself in sentences, argue with inner monologues. But did you ever choose your language? Did you select the structure of your thoughts? Or did they arrive already bound in the chains of syntax? You were born into a prison with invisible bars, grammar, and like any prisoner who's spent a lifetime behind walls, you've confused captivity with identity. Consider the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, a foundational concept in linguistic relativity. It states that the language you speak shapes, distorts, and limits the way you think. In some tongues, there are no words for left or right, only cardinal directions. People raised in these environments navigate the world with a preternatural sense of orientation, always knowing which way is north. In others, there are no numbers beyond 3. To them, 7 is not a quantity, but a blur. They cannot count what their words cannot contain. Your language is not a tool that's a lens, a filter, a virus. It crawls into your thoughts and rewrites what is possible. Think of how you describe time. We move forward. The past is behind us. But in Aymara, an indigenous language of the Andes, the future is described as behind the speaker because it is unknown, and the past is in front because it is seen. Their conception of time literally runs the opposite direction. And in Mandarin, time can move vertically, up for future, down for past. Tell me again, is time a river, or just a word you inherited? Language doesn't just shape thought, it replaces it. Try to have a thought without words. Try to express grief, betrayal, without a script, without a metaphor, without a grammar. You can't. What you call thinking is often just remembering phrases you've heard before. You're not generating ideas, you're recycling idioms. Ludwig Wittgenstein once said, "The limits of my language mean the limits of my world." But you don't just live inside language, you are constructed by it. Your self-concept, I am kind, I am broken, I am successful, is made of language. Remove the sentence, and the self disappears. Now go deeper. Your inner voice, the one you mistake for identity, is not native to you. It emerged only once you internalized social speech. Developmental psychologists have shown that children speak out loud to themselves while solving problems. Only later does this mutter become silent, and only after it's been corrected, punished, shaped. Your thoughts are echoes of external discipline. You are haunted by the words others planted. Even silence is shaped by language. What you do not say is often because there is no phrase available. Entire categories of experience vanish if your language does not permit them. Some tongues have no word for guilt. Others have dozens for what you call love. And so your heart is carved not by biology, but by vocabulary. Language is not free. It is encoded with power. Every word you use arrives with 1,000 histories. When you say man, you invoke centuries of roles, laws, norms. When you say freedom, you are citing revolutions, constitutions, hypocrisies. You do not choose words, they choose you. They come with ghosts. And the more fluent you become, the more trapped you are. The poet can describe the ineffable, but not escape it. The philosopher debates being, but only through inherited terms. Even the mystic, in silence, returns to metaphor. Language is the sea, and you are drowning, but it feels like swimming. Now consider thought experiments. If a child was raised with no language, could they have beliefs, morals, a self? Studies on feral children suggest not. Without language, there's no introspection, no reflection, no continuity, just reaction. Know you. Remove words, and you remove time, identity, morality, and memory. This doesn't mean there's no reality outside language, but it does mean you'll never touch it. You live in a simulation made not of pixels or data, but of verbs and clauses. And unlike computers, you don't even know you're running a program. Language tells you what exists, what matters, what is allowed. It is your map, but you've mistaken it for the territory. You live inside metaphors and call them facts. So ask yourself, when you say I, who is speaking, and when you fall silent, what remains? For memory is a lie you keep telling yourself. You trust your memory because without it, you would vanish. You call it sacred. You call it personal. You believe it is the thread that holds you together, each moment recorded and archived in the vault of your mind, retrievable at will. But your memory is not a vault, it's a theater. And you're not the archivist, you're the playwright, the actor, and the audience, all trapped in the same hallucination. Let's begin with the most unsettling truth. You don't remember events, you remember the last time you remembered them. Every act of recall is an act of distortion. The brain does not store memories like files. It reactivates neural patterns, reassembles fragments, and rewrites the narrative with each telling. This is called reconsolidation. Every time you remember, you alter. Each memory is a copy of a copy of a copy, blurred by emotion, polluted by context, and subtly rewritten by suggestion. Your past is a slowly mutating story, and you're the one holding the pen, unaware that you're rewriting the plot. Elizabeth Loftus' research showed how easily false memories can be implanted. Subjects were told they had been lost in a shopping mall as a child of fabricated event. Within days, many began to vividly recall it. The smell of popcorn, the color of the floor tiles, even the panic in their tiny chests. None of it ever happened, but it didn't matter. The brain doesn't care about truth, it cares about coherence. And coherence is a fragile god. You remember your childhood as a chain of defining moments, but those moments are manufactured. The brain stores high emotion fragments, not timelines. Most of your early years are black holes, filled later with guesses, photos, or anecdotes. You say, "I remember this birthday," when in fact you remember a photograph of it. You recall a smile, but it might have belonged to someone else. Your memories are mosaics stitched together from fragments, and you never see the seams. This is not rare, it is universal. Consider the Mandela effect. Thousands remember a childhood book titled The Berenstein Bears, but it was always Berenstein. Entire forums exist to insist this cannot be a typo. But what is truly terrifying is not the collective misremembering, but that you believe memory is evidence. It never was. In criminal trials, eyewitness testimony is still given enormous weight, even though it is among the least reliable forms of evidence. Witnesses remember guns that were never there, facial features that don't exist, entire sequences that never occurred. Under stress, memory fractures. Under authority, it conforms. You don't just remember badly, you remember what you're told to remember. And then there is Dacia Vutha, fleeting horror that you've already lived a moment. You're supposedly experiencing for the first time. What is this glitch? Some say it's temporal lobe misfiring. Others suggest it's memory being processed before perception. Either way, it reveals the deeper truth. Your sense of time, your sense of novelty, your sense of presence, all of it is memory pretending to be now. Even trauma is not immune. PTSD is not the simple replay of horror. It is the brain malfunctioning during storage, encoding fragments too deeply, too vividly, and then reliving them without context. The memory doesn't fade, it attacks, and it changes with each intrusion. You are not haunted by the event. You are haunted by the brain's desperate attempts to make it make sense. There is no original version of your past, only layers of approximation filtered through biology, emotion, and suggestion. You are a creature built from corrupted archives, a historian whose ink never dries, a memoirist who can't stop lying. Worse, you need the lie. The self requires continuity. Without memory, there is no thread, no identity. But your brain will invent continuity rather than live without it. In Korsakoff syndrome, patients with severe amnesia fabricate detailed false memories to maintain a coherent self. They are not aware they're lying. They must believe, and so must you. Memory is not about the past. It's about control. It's how you justify who you are. It's how you explain the distance between yesterday and today. But if those explanations are false, if the past is only a castle you keep rebuilding on sinking sand, then who are you defending? Why is it so terrifying to admit that nothing ever happened the way you remember? And if your past is fiction, who exactly do you think is telling this story? 5. Your senses are fabricated. And so is the world. You open your eyes and believe. You see the world. You hear it, feel it, taste it, smell it. You trust your senses because they're immediate, because they're visceral. But your senses are not windows to reality. They are hallucinations your brain generates in real time, a theater so convincing you forgot it was a stage. Let's begin with vision. What you see is not what's out there. The eyes deliver raw data, scattered photons bouncing off surfaces. But the image you experience, the shape of a face, the color of a sky, the shimmer of water doesn't exist in the world. It's assembled inside your skull. Light hits your retina upside down and backward. Your brain flips it. Colors don't exist outside of your perception. They are electromagnetic frequencies rendered into internal experience. There is no red. In the world, only wavelength. Your brain paints red onto surfaces that are, in truth, colorless. Now pause. Do you remember the blind spot in your eye, the place where your optic nerve connects, leaving a hole in your visual field? Probably not. Your brain fills it in with guesswork so seamlessly that you've never noticed it. It's happening right now. You are staring at a patched-together image built from habit, assumption, and memory. You're not seeing the world, you are predicting it. You're hearing, just as fabricated. The auditory system breaks down sound waves and reinterprets them into patterns. But it doesn't give you accuracy, it gives you meaning. That's why you can hear your name in a crowded room, why you hallucinate your phone buzzing, why you can't unhear a lyric once you've been told what it says. What you think is sound is interpretation filtered by expectation, modulated by attention. You never hear what's there. You hear what you expect to hear. Now your sense of touch. Do you really feel the world? Every touch, every pressure, every ache, just electrical signals routed through your somatosensory cortex. Phantom limb syndrome proves this beyond question. People with amputated limbs feel their missing arms being touched, burned, or twisted. The body is gone, but the brain insists it's still there. Your pain isn't even in your body. It's in your mind. Smell and taste are chemical illusions. A strawberry doesn't taste sweet. It emits molecules that your brain translates into flavor based on evolutionary preference. Your genetics determine whether coriander is refreshing or soapy, whether cheese smells delicious or like rot. The world doesn't contain flavor, it contains data. Your perception turns that data into a reward or a punishment, depending on your evolutionary programming and cultural exposure. So what happens when the senses fail? Charles Bonnet syndrome occurs when blind individuals experience vivid, detailed hallucinations, faces, animals, entire landscapes. Their visual cortex, deprived of input, begins to invent. The mind would rather fabricate experience than accept sensory silence. It needs sensation, even if it must generate it from nothing. And this is the truth. Perception is not passive. It is active synthesis. The world you think you inhabit, its colors, textures, sounds, temperatures, is a controlled delusion engineered by your nervous system. Your brain doesn't want truth. It wants utility. So it hides everything you don't need to see. You don't see atoms. You don't hear radio waves. You can't sense time dilation, or quantum entanglement, or the curvature of space-time. You move through a universe that is mostly invisible, and you survive only because your mind edits the horror out. Now realize this. You've never directly experienced reality. Every sensation is a signal filtered, distorted, and rendered by neural software you didn't design. Your senses are not tools for discovering truth. They're defense mechanisms. They keep you from knowing too much. Even now, you are seeing this page or screen, or device not as it is, but as your brain has decided it should be. Photons strike your retina. The signals are inverted, compressed, sorted, reassembled. You're not experiencing the world. You're experiencing an opinion of the world. But if your senses are simulations, then what is reality? And if you have never truly touched the world, how can you be sure it even exists? 6. Free will was a story you needed to believe. You think you choose, that you decide, that you weigh options, deliberate, and act. You think your will is free, sovereign, untouchable. But this belief, this sacred lie, is not only unproven, it is incompatible with everything we know about the body, the brain, the cosmos, and causality. You were taught to believe in choice so you could be held accountable. But now it's time to tear the mask off. Begin with the biology, your actions. Begin before you begin. In Benjamin Libet's groundbreaking experiments, subjects were asked to move a finger whenever they felt the urge. Electrodes recorded brain activity, and what did they find? Neural signals began preparing for movement hundreds of milliseconds before the subject became aware of the decision. Later studies extended that to 7 full seconds. 7 seconds before you decide, your brain already has. Where in that chain exactly do you think you're in control? The readiness potential buildup of electrical activity happens unconsciously. And when awareness finally arises, it does so with the illusion that it was first. But it wasn't. You are not the spark, you are the smoke, rationalizing a fire that started long before you noticed it. And still you tell yourself stories. You say, I chose this. But psychology tells us otherwise. In post-choice justification, your brain invents reasons for decisions you've already made unconsciously. You believe you are choosing the red shirt because it feels right, but the lighting in the room shifted your mood. The angle of the hanger made it easier to reach. The smell of the fabric reminded you, without your knowing, of a childhood memory you can't even name. You are a machine explaining its own outputs, and the illusion doesn't stop at simple choices. It invades morality in split-second scenarios, pulling a lever to save lives, deciding to help a stranger. Your brain reacts instinctively. Only afterward do you construct a narrative of ethics or principle. The conscious mind isn't the decider, it's the commentator, the PR department of the unconscious. But maybe, you argue, you're still free because your brain is you. If the decision comes from within, isn't it still yours? Then let's pull back farther. The structure of your brain, its wiring, its chemistry, its reactions was not something you chose. Your genetics determined its shape. Your early environment reinforced its biases. The trauma you endured, the culture you absorbed, the education. You were given or denied all these carved channels through which your decisions now flow. What you call choice is a deterministic cascade of events that began before you were born. You inherited a machine and were told to take credit for its outputs. Even randomness doesn't save you. Quantum indeterminacy may exist at the microscopic level, but randomness is not freedom. If your actions are dictated by a random process, they are still not yours. A dice roll is not a decision. You are trapped between two cages, determinism and chaos. In 2008, neuroscientist John Dylan Haynes showed that brain activity could predict a person's decision to press a button before they became conscious of choosing it with 80% accuracy. The conscious mind arrives late. The decision has already been made. You are the narrator, not the author. Still, you feel free, but that feeling is not evidence. It's the same way a dream feels real while you're in it. It's the same way a mirage convinces a dying man there's water. You feel free because the system depends on it. Without the feeling, you would shatter. Now consider this. Every time you resist an urge, you believe that is proof of free will. But what if your resistance was itself determined? What if that act of control was merely another pattern, just a higher order reflex, shaped by deeper, older influences? Your moral triumphs, your failures, your guilt, and your pride, they are artifacts of a system you don't own. The legal system is built on the fiction of will. So is religion. So is capitalism. They all need you to believe that you could have done otherwise, that you had the power to choose and, therefore, deserve the consequences. But science offers no such luxury. The universe does not judge. It simply unfolds, equation after equation, through a blind ballet of inevitability. You may feel horrified by this, but that horror too was not your choice. So ask yourself, if you do not choose your thoughts, your preferences, your actions, or even the illusion that you do, what is left of your freedom? And if you are not free, can you still call yourself alive? 7. The self is not continuous. It's replaced constantly. You believe there is a you that persists. That the person who woke up this morning is the same person who fell asleep last night, and the same child who once clutched a stuffed toy and stared up at stars. You think your identity is continuous, a single thread weaving through time, but that thread doesn't exist. There is no you that lasts. What exists instead is a flickering pattern of neural activity, written, overwritten, interrupted, and rebooted constantly. You are not one thing stretched over time. You are thousands of versions of yourself, loosely connected by memory and story. Start with biology. Every 7 to 10 years, most of the cells in your body have been replaced. Your skin, your bones, your organs, they've regenerated. Your gut cells last only a few days. Your red blood cells, about 4 months. Even your brain, once thought to be an exception, undergoes slow cellular turnover. The hardware that houses your thoughts is not permanent. It is decaying and replenishing itself all the time. So what, then, is consistent? Not memory. You forget more than you retain. Your earliest memories are inaccessible. Your recent memories are often unreliable. Even your personality traits shift. What you liked 5 years ago, you now detest. The people you loved no longer fit the silhouette of your need. You've been reborn so many times, you've forgotten how often you died. And yet you say, this is me. But when exactly is me? Consider the ship of Theseus. If you replace a ship's planks one by one, is it still the same ship? If you rebuild it entirely from the removed pieces, which is the real one? Now apply that to yourself. Which version is truly youth? The person who sobbed into a pillow at 17, or the person who fakes a smile now at 30, or the one who will soon resent both for their ignorance? There is no single you, only a parade of masks, sharing a name. Meditation reveals this truth, too. Advanced practitioners report a dissociation from the self, a realization that thoughts arise without an owner, that emotions rise and fall without identity, that consciousness itself is not tethered to a central ego, but is a stage with no fixed performer. In moments of deep awareness, the illusion cracks, the I disappears, but the illusion is strong. You are rewarded for maintaining it. Society requires consistency. Legal identity, responsibility, reputation, so you perform coherence. You pretend to be one thing. You build a LinkedIn profile. You make vows. You write autobiographies. You believe your preferences have always been the same. But every time you act out of character, you revise the story. You justify the change. You edit the timeline so the current you always appears inevitable. Your past selves would barely recognize you. Some would hate you. In dissociative identity disorder, multiple distinct identities appear in the same body. It's with their own memories, mannerisms, even allergies. It's not a glitch. It's a mirror held up to the rest of us. Because you do this too, just more quietly. The version of you who speaks to your mother is not the one who writes in your diary. The self that flirts is not the self that grieves. You are a choir of masks taking turns at the microphone. Even in sleep, the continuity vanishes. Every night you disappear. Your conscious self dissolves. Your memories scatter, and dreams hijack your identity. You are puppeted through absurd narratives, speaking words you didn't script. You wake, shaken, sometimes crying, and yet you insist that was just a dream. But if you can be replaced so easily, was the dream not you? Split brain patients once again expose the rift. When the corpus callosum is severed, the two hemispheres act independently. Each half believes it is you. Each half confabulates explanations for actions it cannot understand. If the self were unitary, how could it divide so cleanly? So, where is the real you? Is it the voice in your head? That voice is learnt speech, internalized from parents and peers. Is it your body? That body is shifting sand? Is it your memories? Those are corrupted files, constantly revised. Is it your consciousness? That too fades with sleep, anesthesia, trauma. The Buddhist concept of unnata non-self warned of this illusion millennia ago. There is no abiding essence, no soul, no core. You are a process, a flame, not a sculpture, a whirlpool, not a stone. And if this is true, if you are a process constantly replacing itself, what exactly are you trying to protect? Who is it that you mourn when you lose yourself? 8. History is a script written by the unreliable. You were taught that history is memory writ large, a record of what happened. The truth, stored in books, monuments, and lectures. A shared past, agreed upon. But history is not memory. It is myth. A script written by victors, edited by survivors, distorted by power, and recited by the obedient. What you call history is not the past. It is a version of the past that survived long enough to be believed. Let's begin with documentation. You believe facts are preserved in texts, artifacts, and photos. But how many of those documents were destroyed, lost, or never recorded? The Library of Alexandria held hundreds of thousands of texts, mathematics, astronomy, medicine wiped out by flame and conquest, whole civilizations erased in ash. What is left is not a complete archive, but curated rubble. Every history you've read is what someone decided to keep. Even the maps lie. Medieval maps show Jerusalem at the center of the world. Early Chinese maps place China at the core. America once labeled its blank spaces terra incognita, as if unknown lands didn't exist until Europeans discovered them. The map is not the territory, it's the ideology. You trust historians, but history is stitched from bias. Diaries are written by those who could write. War accounts are told by those who won. Records come from courts, kings, clergy, not the voiceless, not the slaves, not the exiled. And when voices from the margins appear, they're often ignored, dismissed, or mythologized. How much history did you inherit from silence? Even when recorded, history bends. Consider the clean narrative of World War II. Good versus evil, tyranny versus freedom. But America supported fascist regimes for decades after. Germany's own descent into Nazism was cheered by crowds, not imposed by force. The US turned away Jewish refugees. The Allies bombed civilian cities. Truth becomes a slogan. Complexity dies in the textbook. We do not remember the past. We construct it. Psychology proves how easily collective memory is manipulated. The more a story is repeated, the more it feels true regardless of accuracy. This is the illusory truth effect. Repetition creates belief. That's why propaganda works. That's why statues are built. That's why national myths endure. 1,000 voices saying the same falsehood will always drown a whisper of truth. Ask yourself, who benefits from the version you were told? Why do you remember Rome as a beacon of civilization, but not its brutal colonialism? Why are you taught the American Revolution as liberty, but not genocide? Why do you know Einstein, but not Emmy Noether? History is not what happened, that's what was permitted to survive under the weight of politics, gender, class, race. Even recent history fractures. Half the population may remember an event one way, the other half another. A protest to one side is a riot to the other. A hero becomes a villain overnight. The present moment is already a battleground of interpretation. Facts die first. Memory follows. Now realize this. Your own sense of identity is built on these distortions. You believe your country stands for something, that your people came from somewhere noble, that your lineage, your flag, your anthem, your blood means something consistent, but all of it was written by hands you never saw, all of it edited in blood and fear. And what of the holes? How much has been lost forever? Entire civilizations, with no names, languages spoken and forgotten, empires that left no trace. History is not a full account, it is a post-apocalyptic artifact. The bones are labeled, the flesh is missing, and even bones can lie. We carbon date, we excavate, we piece together pottery and declare whole societies, but interpretation fills the gaps. Archaeologists once believed the Minoans were peace because no weapons were found until they dug deeper. The Maya collapse was once blamed on war until evidence of drought emerged. What you think is known isn't, it's guessed. You do not live in the shadow of the past. You live in the illusion of a story told about it. So ask yourself, if history is not truth, but narrative, and if that narrative changes depending on who is allowed to speak, then what exactly have you built your beliefs upon? And if everything you were told was a version, whose version are you? 9. You're not watching reality. You're simulating it right now. You think you're perceiving the world. You believe you're taking it in, the colors of the room, the weight of your body in the chair, the words on this screen. But what you are doing is not perception. It is hallucination with constraints. Your brain is not receiving reality. It is constructing it. And once you understand this, you'll never trust what you see again. Start with the most disturbing truth neuroscience offers. Your brain predicts the world before it senses it. You don't wait to receive information. You anticipate it. And when the signal arrives, your brain compares it to what it expected, then adjusts your experience accordingly. You live inside a constant feedback loop of guesses. You hallucinate what you believe should be there and only correct yourself when reality disagrees loud enough. This model is called predictive processing, and it turns your understanding of consciousness inside out. Your brain is a prediction engine. Its job is not to reveal the world, but to reduce error between what it expects and what it gets. Vision, hearing, Touch, these are not passive recordings. They are predictions, tweaked by error signals. What you see is what your brain thinks it should see. That's why optical illusions work. Why you can see a hollow mask as a convex face. Why you see motion where there is none. Why your brain insists that color remains the same in changing light-color constancy. Or that two sounds are coming from the same source when they are not the ventriloquist effect. Your senses lie, but they lie consistently, because the brain values plausibility, not truth. You've been taught that the brain receives information and interprets it, but it's the other way around. The brain interprets, first then fills in the information. The phantom phone vibration in your pocket, a prediction error, the sensation of being watched, a high-certainty simulation, the noise that startled you even though it was always there. Your model just updated its importance, and these hallucinations are not confined to error, they are the default mode of consciousness. Take dreams, entire worlds spun from nothing. Logic bends, time folds, identities shift. Yet while you're dreaming, you rarely question it. Why? Because the dream fits your internal model of what might happen. It's a simulation, and when you wake, you pretend you're back in reality, though functionally, very little has changed. You are still dreaming. The only difference is the input error correction is now slightly tighter. Even waking consciousness is structured by simulation. Your body's schema, your felt sense of where you are as an internal model. That's why virtual reality can make you feel nausea from motion that doesn't exist. Why phantom limbs itch where there's no flesh. Why you can't tickle yourself. Your prediction cancels the sensation. The world doesn't enter you. You project into the world. Now consider this. Your sense of agency, a feeling that you are initiating action, is also predicted. Your brain simulates what it would feel like to make a choice. Then, when your body moves, the predicted feeling is confirmed. You don't control your actions and then feel them. You feel the simulation of control and assume it was yours. You are the passenger of a hallucinated pilot. This brings us to a terrifying convergence. The brain doesn't care whether something is real, it only cares if it fits. Placebo effects heal without medicine. Nocebo effects kill without poison. False memories form real trauma. Visualizations produce muscle gains. Imagined experiences shape actual physiology. Your body is changed by what you believe is happening. So ask, if your brain is always simulating, always hallucinating with error correction, what makes you think you've ever seen the world as it truly is? You've never seen the electromagnetic spectrum. You've never heard the full vibration of air. You've never touched an atom. You've only touched the model. And if all you've ever known is a simulation, if even yourself is a predicted narrative, then who or what is actually experiencing your life? Is it even you? 10. Time doesn't flow, and you are never moving through it. You think you're moving forward. You imagine your life as a line past behind you, future ahead, each moment bleeding into the next. But this sensation is a lie. Time does not flow. You are not traveling through it. The arrow of time is not carved into the universe, it is carved into you. And even that carving was done with a trembling, untrustworthy hand. In physics, time is not a line. It's a coordinate, just another axis like width or height. In the equations of general relativity, time doesn't move forward. It doesn't move at all. The universe is described as a four-dimensional block, every moment in time equally real, equally existent, equally frozen. The The past hasn't vanished. The future isn't waiting. Everything simply is. This is called the block universe theory, and it is not science fiction. It is the natural conclusion of Einstein's equations. Time is not a flowing river. You are not a boat riding its current. You are a static pattern in the riverbed already there, already complete. So what is it, then, that makes you feel like time is moving? It is your brain, a machine built to forget the future and remember the past. Memory gives the illusion of motion, but it is an illusion of structure, not of physics. You experience a now not because there is such a thing in the universe, but because your consciousness stitches together your neural states in a certain order. Your perception of time is a function of information processing, not of reality. You don't move through time. Time moves through you. Think of a movie reel. Each frame already exists. The reel doesn't move, you pass light through it, one frame at a time. Your brain is the projector. Consciousness is the flicker between slides. The illusion of movement comes from a trick of delay, persistence, comparison, sequence. But what if you stopped projecting? This would not end time. It would simply end your illusion of it. And now let's fold in quantum mechanics, the very edge of our understanding. At the smallest scales, particles do not move in continuous paths. They flicker, they blur. They exist as probabilities, only becoming real when observed. And even this observation is an entanglement, a collapse of wave functions into outcomes. In this view, there is no consistent now. There are only possible nows, branching timelines, each frozen, each complete. Quantum theory doesn't respect your sense of continuity. It doesn't care what came before. Causality itself becomes suspect at the quantum level. The effect can precede the cause. And you are made of this. So when you say, "That happened to me yesterday," what do you mean? The atoms in your body are not the same. Your memories are fallible. The brain that encoded that moment is already dead and reborn. The you of yesterday is not the you of today. The only thing connecting them is a narrative, a ghost. Story told from inside a corpse of moments. The past is not behind you. It is beside you. It is beneath you. It is still happening. But even worse, the future is too. From the perspective of the block universe, every choice you will make has already been made. Every word you will speak has already been spoken. Free will collapses, not into predestination, but into existential redundancy. You are not a traveler. You are a location. And you are being read. If every version of you already exists in every decision, every failure, every ecstasy has its place, then what is the purpose of your suffering? Why do you endure this scripted hallucination of time? Why pretend you are becoming something when you have already been everything? 11. Memory is a lie you tell yourself. To stay coherent, you trust your memories because you must. You use them to build identity, to navigate relationships, to construct cause and effect. But what if every memory you have is, at best, a story? At worst, a fabrication? What if the foundation of yourself is just the most convincing hallucination you've ever had? Let's begin with the simplest truth. Your brain doesn't store memories like a camera. It reconstructs them. Every time you recall a memory, you don't retrieve a recording, you rebuild a simulation. And every time you rebuild it, you alter it, sometimes subtly, sometimes catastrophically. This is called memory reconsolidation. Your memories are not static, they're plastic. They adapt to your current mood, beliefs, and expectations. When you remember your childhood, Your brain pulls scattered data points and fills in the gaps with narrative glue. The smell of a room, the shape of a face, the sound of your voice as a child, it's all rendered on the fly, like a lie you deeply want to believe. In one horrifying experiment, researchers implanted false memories in subjects by simply suggesting events had occurred. Many participants came to believe they'd been lost in a mall as a child, complete with imagined details, emotions, and sensory impressions, despite it never happening. Their brains built the memory on command. Do you see what this means? If your memories can be edited, inserted, or removed without your awareness, how can you trust any of them? If someone were to show you altered photographs, play fabricated recordings, hint at forgotten events, your brain would likely comply. It wants coherence more than it wants truth. Your identity is built on this ever-malleable foundation. Now consider the phenomenon of confabulation common among patients with brain injury, but also present in normal people. The brain invents memories to fill in blanks. It does so without deception. The person believes these memories. They aren't lies, they're mechanisms of coherence. Your brain would rather believe a smooth lie than endure a jagged truth. You do this constantly. You misremember conversations. You think you said things you never did. You believe people wronged you in ways that are half imagined. You recall your own feelings from years ago and feel sure they were authentic, even though they've been colored by every experience you've had since. You think your past self is you. It's not. It's a character you play to avoid dissolving. Neurologist Oliver Sacks once described patients who could not form new memories. They lived in a perpetual present, their pasts vanishing every minute. When asked how old they were, they guessed wrong by decades. When shown their own reflection, they screamed. The face in the mirror was not who they remembered being. Is that really so different from you? Because even your long-term memory is subject to decay. You forget more than you remember. You revise your memories to protect your ego, to reduce cognitive dissonance. You flatten traumatic details and romanticize pain. You invent motives where none existed. The brain is not interested in storing facts. It is interested in maintaining a cohesive narrative. It lies to you because the truth would shatter you. You might remember your first love, your worst betrayal, your proudest triumph. But what if none of it happened the way you believe? What if the face you hold in your heart is a distortion? What if the pain you carry is based on false sequence, misinterpreted tone, or a dream that bled into waking? Memory is not your anchor to the past. It is your jailer. It traps you in identities that may not be real. There's more. Studies show that every act of remembering modifies the memory. The very process of reflection rewrites the past. So the more you think about a moment, the less accurately you remember it. Nostalgia isn't recollection. It's narrative reconstruction, polished by repetition and desire. And yet, this broken system defines you. You are your memories, aren't you? But what happens to you when those memories are removed, when they are warped beyond recognition? Are you still you? Or are you just the story your brain tells to fill? The unbearable silence of not knowing. If your sense of self is built on fabricated memories, selective erasures, and emotionally convenient edits, then who are you when no one is watching? 12. Your consciousness is not continuous, and you are not awake. You think you're here. You think you're thinking these thoughts in real time, awake and aware. But the version of you reading this sentence is already gone, slipped between neurons, collapsed into noise. Your consciousness isn't a river, it's a strobe light, flickering, fragmented, intermittent, and no one is monitoring the gaps. Let's begin with the simplest betrayal. You lose consciousness every night. When you sleep without dreaming, you are gone completely. No thoughts, no watcher, no you. Hours vanish like a skipped scene in a broken film. And when you wake, you stitch the gap together with a shrug, calling it rest. But the deeper horror is this: you flicker all the time, even while awake. Neuroscience has begun uncovering unsettling truths. Consciousness doesn't occur in a steady, unbroken stream. Brain imaging reveals that attention and awareness pulse in oscillations, rhythmic bursts of neuronal synchrony. The illusion of continuity is a reconstruction. In other words, you are only conscious some of the time. The rest is a blackout your brain edits around. Studies using visual masking and cognitive interference show that stimuli can influence your behavior without entering your conscious awareness. You can act, decide, and feel without ever being there for it. Your brain makes the decision. Then your consciousness takes credit, milliseconds too late. Who, then, is in charge? Consider the phenomenon of blindsight, condition where people with damage to the visual cortex can't see, but can still react to visual stimuli. They navigate obstacles, catch balls, guess shapes correctly. Their conscious mind insists it sees nothing, but something deeper sees everything. You are not the observer, you are the narrator of the observation. You arrive late to your own experience. In fact, this delay has been measured. Libet's experiments in the 1980s showed that the brain initiates actions before we become aware of deciding to act. That means your unconscious brain lights up the command before youth. The conscious you register, the impulse. You are not the author of your thoughts. You are their reader. What you call now is always a moment too late. Let's go further. Consider microsleep's brief lapses of awareness that occur even during wakefulness. Your eyes are open, you appear alert, but for milliseconds, your awareness disappears. And these moments can happen hundreds of times a day without you noticing. You never notice because you weren't there. And so, the terrifying possibility arises. There may be no such thing as continuous selfhood. Your eye is not a fixed. Present sit is a stitched-together highlight reel. Gaps are filled in. Pauses are paved over. You are a looping echo of flickering awareness. A montage, not a film. And yet, the illusion feels so real. It has to, because continuity is the only way to feel responsible, to feel present, to feel real. If your awareness stutters, then the self is not stable. If the self is not stable, then morality, identity, meaning, all of it fractures. And so your brain constructs a smooth fiction, a lie of constant presence, a mask to hide the machine. But when you sit alone in the dark, when no one is speaking, no one is watching, who is there? Are you still there? Or do you blink out between thoughts, between breaths, between neurons? Only imagine you are a flame when you are really a spark, a glitch, a pulse. And if you only exist in slices, then who or what is being sliced? 13. Free will was never yours to lose. You feel it in your bones. The weight of decision, you choose your path. You take responsibility. You regret, you hope, you imagine futures not yet lived. And every step you take, you call freedom, choice, agency. But that feeling, the gravity of free will's the most elaborate illusion your mind has ever produced. Let's begin with the simplest trap. You did not choose your desires. You didn't choose what makes you angry. You didn't choose your taste in music, or your fear of abandonment, or your tendency to cry during certain commercials. You didn't choose the thoughts that rise unbidden, or the impulses that clutch your spine. In moments of panic, these things happen to you. They arise from somewhere deeper, somewhere unreachable, and you just rationalize them after the fact. This is not metaphor, this is neuroscience. In experiment after experiment, researchers have shown that your brain makes decisions before you become aware of them. In Libet's famous study, participants were asked to move their finger whenever they felt like it. Brain scans revealed that the impulse to move registered nearly half a second before the participant reported deciding to move. The brain made the choice. Consciousness followed, inventing the feeling of volition. You are not the decider. You are the press secretary. Even more unsettling are more recent replications using fMRI scans. Some experiments have predicted people's choices up to 7 seconds before the subject believed they had decided. The choice was locked in neurally encoded, long before the illusion of agency arrived. You feel free because you don't notice the constraints, but you were never free. You didn't choose your parents, your DNA, your childhood trauma, the architecture of your prefrontal cortex, the shape of your dopamine receptors, or the way your gut twists when you hear a certain voice. You didn't choose your culture, your language, your biases, your unconscious associations. You didn't choose the moment you were born into, or the century, or the God you were told to fear. You were constructed, and the you that makes decisions is a brief flicker emerging from that construction. Take the illusion of choice in thought. Have you ever tried to control your thoughts? Truly, for more than a few seconds, the thoughts arrive uninvited. You don't decide to think them, they just appear. You can react to them. You can try to suppress or replace them. But even those reactions arise from the same abyss. And yet, society demands you believe in free will. Because morality, punishment, praise, they all hinge on it. A criminal must be guilty. A hero must be praised. But if the rapist's brain was shaped by decades of trauma, neurological imbalance, and a lack of inhibition inducing serotonin, is he still free? If the philanthropist was raised in luxury, trained to empathize, and genetically predisposed toward oxytocin-driven bonding, is she better, or is she simply lucky? This is not a defense of evil. It is an indictment of the illusion. Because the truth is colder. Your choices are outputs of a machine built from genes, chemicals, and history. The machine predicts your decisions before you know them. The machine executes your beliefs before you question them. And that machine is not you. It just runs you. Even in moments of willpower, the narrative breaks. Studies show that your ability to resist temptation is not based on character, but on how much glucose is in your bloodstream. Your biology trumps your virtue. Your chemistry decides your morality. Do you understand? You were never choosing. And now the worst question. Even if you could make a decision freely, what would that mean? What is a free choice? One that comes from nowhere. One that is not caused by prior events, but a choice without cause is random. It is not meaningful, it is chaos. So if your choice is caused, it is not free. And if it is uncaused, it is meaningless. Either way, free will is a paradox. You feel it, yes, but the feeling is a side effect, like warmth from a burning bulb. You can sense it, but you can't touch the source. And yet you go on, making your choices, drawing meaning from your regrets and victories. You convince yourself that the you who woke up today is the same you who chose this path. But if you trace every decision back, every impulse, every preference, you find a chain you didn't forge, stretching back to a beginning that wasn't yours. If you were not free, what have you spent your entire life taking responsibility for? 14. Time is not what you think it is, and neither are you. You cling to time like a scaffold. Morning, noon, night, past, present, future. It's the structure that keeps you sane. But that structure is a lie. And you thread it into itar, just another fabrication hanging from a clock that doesn't tick the way you think it does. Time, as you understand it, does not exist. Start here. Einstein shattered your idea of time in 1905. His theory of special relativity showed that time is not absolute. It bends, stretches, slows. It depends on speed and gravity. The faster you move, the slower time passes for you. If you stood near a black hole, a single second for you might be years for someone on Earth. Time is not universal. It is not steady. It is not real in the way you live it. But it gets worse. Relativity also implies something more disturbing. Past, present, and future all exist simultaneously. This is the block universe theory, a consequence of the math, not a speculative idea. The universe is a four-dimensional block where time is just another coordinate, like space. Every moment your birth, your death, the time you said I love you and didn't mean it, is still there, eternally fixed. You are not moving through time, you are positioned in it. The future is not yet, it is just elsewhere. There is no now, there is no flowing river. The passage of time is an illusion of consciousness, like motion blur in a slow camera. Your brain makes sense of events in sequence, but in the block universe, there is no sequence. There is only geometry, there is only arrangement. What you call change is just a trick of your limited perception. And yet, you still ask, why does it feel like time flows? Your brain stitches sensory input into a story. The story has a beginning, middle, and end, not because reality demands it, but because you do. Neurologically, your brain is addicted to causality. You demand that one event leads to another, that moments pass, that something happens. But none of this is real outside your skull. Your memories aren't time travel, they are reconstructions. Studies show that every time you recall an event, you alter it, rewriting. You are not remembering the past, you are fabricating a version of it that fits your present identity. And that identity, also built from time, you tell yourself a story of you evolving, growing, improving. But if time does not flow, then you do not change. The you who failed, who suffered, who triumphed, those versions are all still there, still happening, forever frozen. You don't become, you just are across coordinates. If you could step outside time, you would see yourself not as a person, but as a statue of infinite length, stretching from birth to death. A fixed sculpture. No agency, no progression, just a solid line of events that cannot be altered, paused, or reversed. And what of free will in this block universe? There is no room for it. Your future is already etched into space-time. Every breath you'll take, every word you'll speak, every betrayal you'll commit, already there, happening at another coordinate. You're not moving toward it, you're already in it. Your decisions are just features of your temporal structure. You cannot jump tracks, because there are no tracks. Now look around you. The world you inhabit is designed around a lie of linear time, calendars, clocks, aging, anticipation, regrets, all built to support the illusion of movement. But no matter how fast you run, you never leave your point in the block. And the most terrifying part, entropy, what you call the arrow of time, does not require time to flow. It's just statistical probability. Disorder increases, systems decay. But the direction of entropy isn't a moving train, it's just a property of how matter is arranged. It's your perception of entropy that creates the illusion of time flowing forward. There is no forward. There is only location. So then ask yourself if your future is already real, already happening. Who is the you waiting to meet it? What part of you believes it hasn't already been lived? And if time isn't moving, but you think it is, then who is dreaming your life as a film, frame by frame? And why can't you wake up? 15. The ship of you has already sunk. Imagine a wooden ship. Over years, its planks are replaced one by one. First, a board in the hull, then a broken mast, then the deck. After decades, not a single original part remains. Is it still the same ship? This is the ship of Theseus, a philosophical thought experiment that dates back over 2,000 years. But it's not about ships, it's about you, because every cell in your body has changed. Every atom you claim as self has been replaced, and yet you call yourself the same person. Why? Your skin regenerates every month, your liver every year, your bones take a little longer, about a decade. The cells in your body die and are replaced constantly, invisibly, without permission. You are not what you were, not physically, not chemically. You are a whisper of continuity in a storm of entropy. So what remains? You'll say, memory, identity. But your memories lie. You already know this. Each time you recall a moment, it degrades, mutates. Memory is not a library. It's a remix. You alter the past to fit the self you want to believe in, and you forget more than you retain. So, the you from 10 years ago, what do you share with them? The body is different. The beliefs have changed. The personality has shifted in silent increments. Preferences you once held sacred now feel foreign. Secrets you once buried now rise unbidden. Even your sense of humor decays like rotting fruit. The person you were, do they still exist? Do they have any claim on this moment, this breath? And if not, who is breathing now? Neuroscience does not offer comfort. There is no you center in the brain, no cockpit, no soul curled behind the eyes. Split-brain patients whose brains have been surgically divided at the corpus callosum, terrifying insights. Each hemisphere develops its own preferences, its own version of self. One hand buttons a shirt, the other unbuttons it. One side draws a church, the other a devil. Which is the real you? The truth, there is no singular I. What you call self is a comitia, clashing symphony of sub-personalities, instincts, modules, each with its own agenda. You are a parliament of chaos masquerading as unity, and your continuity an afterthought. Daniel Dennett calls the self a narrative center of gravity, a convenient fiction. Like the center of mass on an object, it helps to calculate behavior, but it does not exist as a thing. You are a story told in retrospect, and like all stories, it's curated, biased, unreliable. You're not even the author. You're just the reader, clinging to the illusion of control as each page turns itself. But here's the deeper fracture. If identity is a process, not a substance, then who do you grieve when someone dies? Who are you mourning if every part of them has already been replaced rewritten, deconstructed. And what of your future self? The person who will live in your body 10 years from now, with different goals, different regrets. Do you owe them anything? Or are they a stranger, wearing your name? Even language betrays you. We say, I did this, I believe that, but who is I? The child who feared the dark, the teenager who betrayed a friend, the adult numbed by routine. Which one owns your soul? If you woke tomorrow with all your memories replaced, but your body unchanged, would you still be you? Or are you already someone else, pretending to remember? In Buddhism, this collapse is central. Unattended doctrine of no self. There is no core, just patterns, processes, flickers of awareness. You are the echo of conditions that no longer exist. A phantom. And still, you hold on to the illusion because without it, you dissolve. But the illusion is costing you. You protect the self from insult, from challenge, from contradiction. You build walls around your ego and call it defense. But if the self is an illusion, then what are you defending? What are you protecting? And why do you fear its death if it never truly lived? So now look at yourself. Trace your fingers along your skin. Tell yourself you are one person, whole and continuous. Say it again and again until the story sounds real. But deep inside, a quieter voice is already whispering. If every part of the ship has been replaced, who exactly is steering it now? 16 Memory is a lie that you mistake for a mirror. You think memory is a record, that it plays back the past like a film reel. But what if memory is more like a painting freshly redrawn every time you look at it, changing with each stroke, until the original scene is unrecognizable? Your memory is not a mirror. It is a manipulative fiction machine. Consider this. The Loftus experiments in the 1970s showed that simple questions can alter your recollection of events. Participants watched videos of car accidents. When asked, how fast were the cars going when they smashed into each other? They recalled higher speeds and broken glass that wasn't there. Change a single word, and you can change an entire history. Your memory is not the past. It's a reconstruction based on your current beliefs, your emotional needs, and 1,000 silent cues in your environment. Even more horrifying, you remember remembering, not the event itself. Each time you recall something, you overwrite it, like a file opened, edited, and saved. What remains isn't the truth. It's just the last version that felt useful. So what exactly are you trusting when you think you know yourself? In 2001, psychologists demonstrated the false memory effect in the most devastating way, implanting entire memories into people's minds. Participants believed they were lost in a shopping mall as children. They told elaborate stories filled with emotion, details, even invented dialogue. None of it happened. And if something so vivid, so specific, can be fabricated wholesale, what else in your past is an elegant fabrication? You do this to yourself all the time. You soften betrayals. You exaggerate triumphs. You rearrange timelines, so you always end up the protagonist. You remember what lets you sleep. You forget what would destroy you. Your first kiss, your worst failure. The moment you decided who you were. They are memory simulations, colored by the self you think you are now, not who you were then. What you call a personality is just the story your brain has told itself repeatedly until the edits became indistinguishable from origin. But it goes deeper. Even flashbulb memories, those burned-in snapshots of crisis, are lies. After 9/11s, People reported with certainty where they were, who they were with, what they felt. But tracked over years, those memories mutated, changed facts, added fiction, and yet their confidence increased. The more wrong they became, the more certain they felt. So memory isn't just flawed, it's aggressively deceptive. And yet, everything you believe about your identity is built on this crumbling foundation. You say, I am who I am because of what happened to me. But if what happened to you is a fiction, then who are you really? Every time you close your eyes and revisit your past, you are reinforcing a myth. You are kneeling before a version of yourself that may never have existed. You are not remembering, you are creating. You might argue, but I have photographs, videos, proof. But you forget that memory also reshapes interpretation. A photo doesn't show what you felt, what you feared, what you misunderstood. It captures a frame, but the story around it, that's your invention. You are your own unreliable narrator. And in that unreliability, you've buried entire versions of yourself. Moments you've chosen not to retrieve, not because they're gone, but because you've decided they no longer fit your narrative. So now ask, what if your defining trauma never occurred the way you recall it? What if your greatest love was never really mutual? What if the source of your shame was a misremembered glance, a warped echo of a stranger's voice? And if even one of those things is untrue, what collapses under it? The you that you think you know, the one who suffered, who rose, who overcame, is a hallucination painted over the ghost of what might have happened. And every day you wake up and reinforce that illusion. You don't live in the past, you remix it. Even the present is not immune. Your working memory, the place where you think, decide, act, is just 15 to 30 seconds long. After that, it's overwritten. Your brain keeps time like a dreamer, not a historian. It discards, revises, smooths over the cracks. So if your mind resets its sense of now every half, what is holding you together? Where is the thread? What if the self you woke up as this morning is not the one who went to sleep? And if your memories are lies stitched into coherence, then who is the you that believes them? 17. Time is the cage that pretends to set you free. You think you're moving through time. But what if time is not a river flowing forward, but a cage collapsing in on itself? What if your movement through it is not progress, but repetition? You wake up, you age, you decay, and you think this is proof that time exists. But you never actually experience time. You only experience change. A shift in light, a beat in your chest, a new pain in the joints. These are your evidence. But they are not time, they are differences you interpret as a timeline. Time itself is invisible, untouchable, a theory you mistake for a law, and worse, it may not exist at all. In 1905, Einstein tore the veil. Time is relative. The faster you move, the slower your clock ticks. Time bends near mass. Gravity stretches it. Two observers can disagree on whether events happened at the same moment, both be right. There is no universal now. That alone should have shattered your faith in linearity, but you clung to the illusion because it comforts you. But general relativity is only half the betrayal. In quantum mechanics, time gets stranger. The equations that govern particles work equally well forward and backward. There's no direction, no arrow. The rules don't care about past or future. They describe possibilities, not flows. The only thing forcing time to move forward is entropy, the tendency for systems to go from order to disorder. Ice melts, stars burn out, you rot. But what if even entropy is just a local phenomenon? a statistical fluke in a pocket of the universe that happened to run downhill. And if entropy is the only reason you believe in time, then you are not traveling through time, you are just falling through disintegration. You might think your future is unwritten, that you are carving a path with your choices. But according to block universe theory, time doesn't flow at all. Past, present, future, they all exist simultaneously. You don't move through time. You are fixed within it, like a bead on a frozen string. Every moment of your life has already happened, is happening, will always happen. You are trapped in a slab of space-time. You cannot escape it. Your future is already etched, waiting for your awareness to slide across it like a needle on vinyl. There is no becoming, only being. And if that is true, then free will dies screaming, because every decision you make has already occurred. You are not choosing, you are remembering what was already chosen. You are not a conductor of events, you are a witness strapped to a ride you mistake for your own legs. You never had agency, you just had delay. And here's where it turns. If time is static, then death has already happened to you. Your final breath is out there, anchored in space-time, indifferent to your pleading. You are already dead in the future, just as you are already born in the past. You think time is a thread you walk. It is not. It is a noose you were born inside. The physicist Julian Barber goes further. He proposes that time doesn't exist at all, only nows do. Snapshots of the universe, still frames, what you call. Motion is your mind imposing continuity on a slideshow. There is no before or after, just a cascade of isolated moments. But then if this moment is all that exists, what was the previous one? Do you remember it? Or are you just configured to believe that you do? Think carefully. If your brain was arranged right now to believe it had a past, to feel continuity, to believe in age, regret, history, how would you know the difference? If there is only now, then everything you think of as life is just the configuration of this instant, including your belief in what came before. And suddenly, everything becomes suspect. The death of a loved one, a memory embedded in your current structure, a scar that never actually occurred, the future you fear. Already written, already past, already unreachable. Your plans, your regrets, your identity, all of them hinge on a concept that may not be real. So tell me, if time is not flowing, then who is it that believes they're moving? 18. The voice in your head is not you. There is a sound you hear constantly, but you've never questioned its origin. The whispering, narrating, strategizing voice that strings your life into meaning. The one that comments on what you see, repeats what you hear, imagines what you'll say. You think it's you, but it's not. It's a parasite that speaks in your accent. Your internal monologue, your I, isn't the source of your thoughts. It's their echo. Neuroscience calls it the default mode network, a brain circuit active when you're doing nothing, yet frantically generating thoughts, judgments, predictions. It narrates your existence, stitching meaning where there is none, building a self from fragments of memory, expectation, fear. You think the voice is observing reality, but it's actually constructing it. In 2016, neuroscientists at Yale found that the default mode network activates even before conscious decisions are made, which means your brain acts and your inner voice rushes in after, like a child scribbling labels on moving boxes. Meant to do that, it insists, but it didn't. It just doesn't want you to panic. It's not describing you, it's covering for you. And yet this voice is the one you identify as your core self. But if you stop and observe it closely, you'll see. You are not speaking it. You are hearing it. Try it now. Notice the next sentence. That forms in your head. Did you will it into being? Or did it arrive unbidden, like weather? The philosopher David Hume said it centuries ago, when he turned inward to find the self. All he ever saw were fleeting perceptions, sounds, images, thoughts, but never a fixed eye. No core, just a stream, a whispering waterfall of impressions. You are not the stream, you are the space it moves through, and that space has no name, no edges, no story. But your voice hates silence. It floods the void with explanations, rationalizations, memories, and plans. It drowns you in commentary so you never have to feel the truth, that you are a witness, not a character, a camera, not a protagonist. And even that's too generous. In meditation studies, advanced practitioners report something terrifying. When the voice goes silent, the self vanishes. Without narration, the I collapses. There's just presence. Being, not even an observer, remains. You don't exist without the voice. And the voice isn't real. So what exactly are you? And worse, the voice lies. It edits memories to make you the hero or the victim. It builds justifications around impulses you didn't choose. It narrates decisions you haven't made. It rehearses conversations that will never happen. It is a hallucination machine that convinces you the hallucination is the truth. But sometimes it glitches. In schizophrenia, the internal monologue is experienced as external. A voice speaking to the person instead of being them. But what if that's not a malfunction, just clarity? What if the only difference between madness and sanity is whether the voice says I or you? Split brain studies from the 1960s revealed something even darker. When the two hemispheres of a person's brain were surgically separated. To treat epilepsy, researchers found that each hemisphere had its own awareness. When only the right hemisphere saw something, the left hemisphere, the one that controls language, had no idea what happened. But when asked, it confidently made up a reason. It couldn't admit ignorance. It had to explain. This is what your voice is doing, rationalizing actions it didn't initiate. It doesn't know what the rest of your brain is doing. But it can't accept that, so it invents. Your life is stitched together by a delusional narrator. And you believe it because it sounds like you. But here's the thing. If the voice can change, if trauma, drugs, disease, or meditation can silence or distort it, then it cannot be your essence. The real you must be something deeper, or nothing at all. And if your thoughts are not yours, if your narrator is unreliable, if your decisions are reactions dressed in language, then what remains? Who is the you that listens to the voice? And if it stops speaking, will anything be left to hear the silence? 19. History is a hallucination. We agreed to believe you live inside a story that someone else wrote for you. You call it history. You were taught it was fact. An unfolding sequence of events, recorded by scribes, verified by scholars, preserved in textbooks. But history isn't a record, it's a narrative, and like all narratives, it is curated, manipulated, sanitized, and censored. You don't remember history, you remember what you were allowed to remember. The past is not behind you, it's under a tarp. You believe the earth revolves around the sun, that the atom exists, that Napoleon lost at Waterloo. But you weren't. There you never saw a single one of these things happen. You accepted them because someone told you they were true. History is consensus, not evidence. memory, not mathematics. Even the evidence is suspect. Take the Library of Alexandria, allegedly one of the greatest repositories of human knowledge. It was said to contain hundreds of thousands of scrolls. Knowledge from Mesopotamia, Egypt, Greece, India gone, burned, lost, but no one knows how. It was destroyed. Different stories blame different people. Caesar, the Christians, the Muslims, all of them, none. The truth was incinerated. And in its place, we accepted a myth of loss. You mourn what you never read. You mourn a phantom. History is not just written by the victors. It's edited by those who survived long enough to rewrite themselves into saviors. In 1984, Orwell warned you, he who controls the past controls the future. He who controls the present controls the past. But the horror isn't in the control, it's in the obedience. You believe your version of history because you need to believe it. Because if you didn't tiff, you truly questioned. Who built your past, your present would become unrecognizable. How many genocides were erased because they were inconvenient? How many civilizations disappeared without a single sentence in your textbooks? How many truths were drowned beneath the louder, richer, more literate cultures that followed? Did you know that we have no idea how the Egyptians built the pyramids? No blueprint, no documented process, just speculation levers, ropes, maybe aliens, maybe slaves. An entire monument to unknown labor, standing taller than anything you've ever achieved. And we shrugged because we need the illusion that someone smarter than us once understood how it was done. You inherit certainty without evidence. Or consider this. In 1908, a massive explosion flattened over 2,000 square kilometers of forest in Tunguska, Siberia. No crater, no impact, no definitive explanation. The leading guess is a meteoric airburst, but that's all it is, a guess. And yet, it's been written into scientific memory, because humans can't tolerate a blank space. So we fill it with something, anything, so the narrative can continue. And that's all history is. A continuation machine. Even your personal history isn't safe. Ask 10 people to recall the same event, and you'll get 10 different versions. Ask someone to recount their childhood, and you'll hear a story full of edit gaps, projections, selective forgiveness. The psychological term is reconstructive memory. Every time you remember something, you rebuild it from fragments, bending it slightly, making it cleaner, more consistent with your present self. Your past is fiction revised for coherence. And the longer you live, the more false it becomes. This is why history repeats. Not because we forget, but because we never remembered it properly in the first place. We remembered the approved version, the story that makes us feel like we're part of progress, that we're climbing out of darkness, that we're headed somewhere better. But there is no arc to history. There is only cycle. Empires rise, they rot, they collapse. Then their ruins become the bricks of the next delusion. You are told the Roman Empire fell in for 76 AD, but did it? The Eastern Roman Empire lasted almost another 1,000 years. What you believe about Rome's fall is just a neat stopping point for a Western narrative. You were told the Middle Ages were a dark time. But to whom? In the Islamic world, it was a golden age. In India, a time of innovation. In China, the Song dynasty was advancing in science and culture. But your history taught you that light returned. Only when Europe was ready to shine. Your past has been colonized. So now, look around you. Your identity, your culture, your sense of belonging, all of it is backed by a ledger you never verified. If the past is unstable, if it can be edited, misremembered, burned, lost, or fabricated, then how can you trust anything built upon it? What does it mean to be a citizen, a human, a species? The foundations of your timeline are sand, and if history is a hallucination we collectively agreed to believe, then what exactly are you waking up from when you begin to doubt it? 20. The universe isn't made of matter. It's made of equations you'll never understand. You were told the world is solid, that atoms make up matter, and matter makes up everything, that the ground beneath you, the hand in front of your face, the voice in your head, they're all things, composed of particles, of building blocks, of stuff, but nothing you touch is actually there. There are no solid objects, there are only fields vibrating, ghost-like, mathematical fields. Your body, your brain, the stars, above all fluctuations in invisible equations. Every atom is 99.9999999999996% empty space, and even the so-called particles inside them, the protons, neutrons, electrons are not particles in the way you imagine. They are probabilities, wave functions, smears across possibility. The thing you call reality is just a pattern in math. Let's start with quantum field theory, the most accurate scientific framework we've ever had. It doesn't describe the world in terms of matter. It describes fields, not just one, but a different field for each fundamental particle. The electron field, the quark field, the photon field. Particles are just excitations, tiny ripples in these fields. Nothing more. So what you call an object is actually a complex interference of undulating, cross-interacting, mathematical phenomena. That cup in your hand is not a cup. It is a swarm of probability waves, collapsing just enough to simulate solidity when observed. You are holding a pattern. And what decides the pattern? Equations, rules, parameters that no one chose. You didn't decide the value of Planck's constant, or the fine structure constant, or the mass of the Higgs boson. These numbers seem arbitrary, and yet they are precise to dozens of decimal points. If any one of them varied even slightly, the universe as you know it would disintegrate, atoms wouldn't form, stars wouldn't burn, life would be impossible. It's as if you were born inside a machine with no manual. The gears work, the buttons respond, but you have no idea why it was built or who calibrated the dials. Physicist Eugene Wigner once called it the unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics. Why should pure math, abstract symbols manipulated on paper, so perfectly describe the structure of the universe? Why should an equation written by a human mind predict the behavior of distant galaxies? Or worse, did the math exist before the mind? Did we discover the equations, or did they write us into being? And then comes the fracture. Most of these equations you will never understand. Even if you devoted your entire life to studying physics, you would only grasp a fraction. And if you're like most people, you'll never go that far. You'll live and die having no real idea what reality is, how it works, or why it exists. You'll eat food, pay bills, feel pain, fall in love, and all of it will happen inside a set of laws you cannot comprehend. You are an animal hallucinating certainty inside a cosmic algorithm. When you say I exist, what you really mean is, I experience a recurring output pattern produced by self-referential cognitive feedback loops. You don't exist as a thing, you exist as a result. But this goes deeper still. According to physicist Max Tegmark's mathematical universe hypothesis, the universe doesn't just behave like mathematics, is mathematics, all physical. Reality is a mathematical structure. Every pattern, every process, every LUT's not a representation of something more fundamental. It is the fundamental. Reality is not built out of atoms. It's built out of pure logic. And if that's true, then you're not even a person. You're an emergent pattern embedded in a recursive computational structure. You are math that has become temporarily aware of itself. But even that awareness is a simulation. When you feel love, the equation balances. When you feel despair, a function loops. When you imagine God, a variable exceeds its bounds. And now ask yourself, do equations care? An equation has no sympathy, no ethics, no memory. It doesn't want you to be happy. It doesn't intend for you to understand. It simply is. You scream at the stars for meaning, but they only burn. You press your hands against existence, begging for warmth, and feel only the echo of a solved equation. And if this world is nothing but math, if you are nothing but math, then who is suffering inside the formula? 21. Your brain edits. Reality, before you see it, by the time you see this sentence, it's already too late. You think you're perceiving the world as it is, in real time. You think light enters your eyes, sound enters your ears, and your brain receives and processes the truth. But what you're actually experiencing is a heavily edited hallucination, spliced together milliseconds after reality has already happened. You live in a lagged simulation, and worse, your brain is lying to you on purpose. Let's begin with the time delay. Your brain needs about 80 milliseconds to process visual information, 100 milliseconds for sound, and nearly 500 milliseconds to fully integrate multisensory input into a coherent scene. That means everything you're perceiving is half a second old, but your conscious experience feels seamless. Why? Because your brain retroactively rewrites time. It holds on to your sensory data for a moment, then reconstructs your awareness as if it happened instantly. This is known as post-dictive processing. In one experiment, subjects saw a flash of light followed by a tone. Even when the tone was delayed, their brains rewrote the experience to place the sound at the same time as the flash. The brain edits time to protect the illusion of continuity, but it doesn't stop at time. Your brain also edits space, identity, and truth. Take the blind spot in your retina. Each eye has a region with no photoreceptors, yet you never see a hole in your vision. Why? Your brain invents content to fill in the gap, painting over the void with whatever it guesses should be there. And you believe it without question. Now multiply that process across everything you sense. The majority of your visual world is not seen, it's guessed. Colors are a fabrication. There's no color in the outside world, only electromagnetic wavelengths. Your brain assigns hues based on context, lighting, expectation, the famous blue and black dress phenomenon. A clash in brain algorithms guessing lighting conditions. You and another person can look at the same object and literally live in different universes. And now, dig deeper. Your sense of self is another fabrication. When scientists stimulate the temporoparietal junction, a region of the brain that integrates bodily sensations, subjects report out-of-body experiences. They feel themselves floating above, observing their own form. The location of the self can be manipulated with electrodes. What you call me is not fixed. It's a projection stitched together from bodily input, proprioception, and memory. In 2007, researchers at the University of Zurich showed that stimulating a different brain region made patients feel a presence behind them, an invisible being. They turned, and no one was there. Yet the feeling was vivid, overwhelming. Your brain can invent ghosts when it miscalculates your body's position. You live inside a user interface designed to be useful, not truthful. Cognitive scientist Donald Hoffman argues that evolution did not shape your senses to perceive reality. It shaped them to increase survival. Truth was never the goal, utility was. If seeing the world accurately decreases your reproductive fitness, natural selection favors lies. You see what keeps you alive, not what's real, and what happens when that utility breaks. Schizophrenia, derealization, hallucinations. One shows the fragility of perception. You can feel watched in an empty room. You can hear voices in silence. You can lose the meaning of your own face in the mirror. You can disintegrate while appearing whole. And yet, even in so-called normalcy, you're not perceiving the world. You're perceiving a guess, a fantasy, built by the brain, for the brain. The philosopher Immanuel Kant saw this centuries ago. He argued that we can never access the thing in itself, the objective world. We only perceive the phenomena, the filtered version shaped by our faculties. Space and time are not external realities. They are mental frameworks, scaffolds the mind imposes to make sense of chaos. Which means reality is not something you see. It is something your brain constructs and shows you, like a movie, after deciding which frames are worth watching. So, when you look at a sunset, a friend, a child's face, you are not seeing them. You are seeing your brain's best approximation, carved from delay, shaped by bias, painted over gaps, and colored with evolution's palette of lies. The sky is not blue. The world is not now. You are not here. So tell me, if you never see reality as it is, if every moment is a reconstruction, then what exactly are you living inside? 22 Memory is a lie that rewrites you. You think you remember. You think your past is a story already written, a solid reel of film you can rewind and replay. But memory is not a recording. It's a reconstruction. Every time you remember something, you are not accessing the past. You are fabricating it, again, using the shattered pieces your mind decided to keep. And each time you remember it, it changes. This is not metaphor. This is neuroscience. When a memory is retrieved, it enters a state called label reconstruction phase, where it becomes unstable and must be saved again. During this phase, it is rewritable. Your brain can thus overwrite it with current emotions, new beliefs, and altered details. This means your oldest memories may be the most distorted. They are no longer your past. They are your present self's revisionist propaganda. You are not remembering. You are rewriting yourself. Now consider what this means. Your sense of self is built on these memories. But if the foundation is corrupted, then your entire identity is fictional, a story told in fragments and rumors. You feel like the same person across time, but you're not. You are a cascade of momentary selves, each reconstructing the past to preserve the illusion of continuity. You are not a single thread. You are a quilt stitched from lies. Elizabeth Loftus, a pioneer in memory research, showed how terrifyingly easy it is to implant false memories. Subjects were told that as children, they had once been lost in a shopping mall. At first, they denied it. But after subtle cues and encouragement, many began to remember it vividly, complete with fabricated sensory details. They believed something that never happened. They created a past that never existed. If your memories can be so easily manipulated by suggestion, what happens when the suggestion is your own mind? What if the worst event of your life never happened the way you think it did? What if the love you believe you lost was never really yours? What if the guilt you carry was manufactured by a neural glitch, a narrative patch stitched over a missing piece? Your trauma could be a hallucination, your pride a mistake, your origin a ghost story told too many times. And you wouldn't know. You couldn't know. Your confidence in memory is not a sign of accuracy, it's a byproduct of how vivid the reconstruction feels. But vividness is not truth. Confidence is not correctness. In fact, the more certain you feel about a memory, the more likely it has been tampered with by emotional bias. Now ask yourself, if memory is unreliable, what remains? You say you are yourself because you remember being yourself. But if those memories are forged, what anchors you? If your internal story is a palimpsest of edits, guesses, and emotional graffiti, who is the author? Is it you, or is you the thing that emerged from these lies, a puppet, animated by unreliable echoes? Consider the ship of Theseus. If you replace every plank of a ship, is it still the same ship? Now apply that to memory. If every memory has been revised, replaced, eroded, are you still the same person? Or are you just a narrative placeholder, an actor reading a script that changes with each performance? Trauma survivors often dissociate, their minds fracturing under unbearable weight. Some create alternate selves, some forget entire chunks of time. These are not malfunctions. These are features of the human memory system, adaptations, ways to survive the unbearable, but they also reveal the truth. Memory is a fiction designed to be pliable, not faithful. So when you say, "I remember," what you really mean is, my brain recreated a version of an event that fits who I think I am. And if that's true, if memory is a lie that rewrites youth, then what is the truth of your life? Was there ever one? 23 language created you, then trapped you. You weren't born with a mind. You were born with a brain, a soft, blind mass of neurons. What you call your mind only began to form when you were given language. Before that, you were a chaos of sensation. No boundaries, no self, just raw input. And then, one day, someone pointed and said, "That's a chair. That's your name. That's wrong." And just like that, your world was sliced into pieces. Language didn't just give you communication, it gave you identity. It told you what was real and what was not. It carved the seamless flow of experience into labeled categories, turned a blur into a narrative, turned instincts into rules. It taught you that you are a separate thing, a thing with a name, a thing that can be judged, punished, remembered. But here is the cruelty: language didn't reveal the world to you. It replaced it. The philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein said, "The limits of my language mean the limits of my world." You cannot conceive of something for which you have no words. Without language, there is no concept of past or future, no moral or immoral, no beauty or ugliness, only momentary existence. Language is the software your mind runs on, and you didn't write it. The words you used to think were given to you by other people, family, teachers, society. You adopted their labels, their moral systems, their binaries. You learned to call things normal or abnormal, good or bad, possible or impossible. You didn't choose your vocabulary. You inherited it, and with it, you inherited their limitations. You think in the language of your captors. Every emotion you've ever had has passed through this filter. Joy, anger, shame, love. But those are just words, trying to pin down storms. The Inuit have dozens of terms. for snow. The Himba people of Namibia have no word for blue, and studies show they struggle to distinguish blue from green. Language shapes perception. If you have no word for it, your brain may not even register it. So what have you never seen because you lack the words? And what if you've been feeling something your entire life, something that doesn't fit any known word, and mistook it for madness, or emptiness, or nothing at all? Even your inner voice, the one narrating your life right now, isn't yours. It's the voice of language itself, parasite, that convinced you it was you. Now look at what this parasite has done. It forces you to package your thoughts into neat sequences, to organize ideas into grammar and syntax, to compress the inexpressible into something that fits the cage of sentence structure. But you're true. Thoughts aren't linear. They're wild. They rise in overlapping waves. They contradict. They collide. Language flattens that chaos into something speakable, but also smaller. So what parts of you have been killed just so you could be understood? And then there's the self. Try to think of who you are without using language. Not I am a person, not I am angry, not I am afraid. Strip the words away. Try to feel your identity without naming it. You will find nothing to hold on to, because identity, like memory, is a linguistic hallucination. A story written in symbols, trying to make permanence out of movement. You are not a name, not a role, not a story. You are a flicker, trapped in a prison built from nouns. And you cannot escape, because even your attempt to escape will be narrated. You will run in circles, translating your own fear into more language. And the more you speak it, the more real it becomes, even if it's a lie. This is how suffering replicates through recursive narration. I'm broken, you say I always do this. No one will understand. Words become truths because you repeat them, not because they were true to begin with. Language taught you how to think, but it also taught you how to suffer. So now you sit, haunted by sentences you didn't choose, naming feelings you can't escape, building a self out of syllables, and mistaking the voice in your head for your own. But if that voice was programmed by others, if the words you think with were forged in someone else's mouth, then who, exactly, is doing the thinking? 24. The observer is the illusion. You think you are the one watching. You picture yourself behind your eyes, a stable point of consciousness, observing everything from the cockpit of your skull. You think there's a you at the center, a self behind the thoughts, behind the feelings, behind the body. But that observer, that quiet presence you believe is constant, it doesn't exist. It's a trick of perception. Neuroscience cannot locate a center of consciousness in the brain. There is no seat of the self, no homunculus pulling levers. Your brain is a distributed system, different regions handling vision, memory, movement, language, image. Somehow, the illusion of a unified self emerges from this chaos. But the self isn't there. It's a story. Split brain studies prove this. When the corpus callosum, the bundle of fibers connecting the two hemispheres, is severed, each half of the brain begins operating independently. One hand buttons the shirt, the other unbuttons it. One hand slaps the other away. In some cases, the two hemispheres disagree. And yet, the person still says I, as if they are one. There are two minds, but the illusion of one observer remains. Who is that I? Michael Gazzaniga's experiments revealed that when one hemisphere takes an action and the other is asked to explain it, the brain fabricates a reasoner, rational explanation pulled from thin air. The conscious mind is not in control. It's not even informed. It's just the narrator trying to make sense of actions already taken by unconscious systems. The observer does not decide. The observer just writes. What you think of as you is a hallucination produced by the brain after the fact. Decisions are made before you are aware of them. In 2008, neuroscientist John Dylan Haynes used fMRI to predict subjects' decisions up to 7 seconds before they became consciously aware of making them. Your body acts, your brain watches, then it invents a self who chose. You are the audience, not the author, and not even a reliable one. You think, I am angry. But where did that anger come from? What part of you decided to feel it? Did you choose it? Or did it arise on its own, like a weather system? A shift in hormones, a memory echo, a word you didn't notice, and yet you claim it. I am angry. I did this. I thought that. You claim ownership over storms that pass through you. This is not just spiritual metaphor. This is empirical neuroscience. There is no central decision maker, no executive self. What exists is a scattered network of competing processes, emotions, biases, instincts, impulses, and the illusion of unity is projected after the fact. You are a flickering hallucination riding a biochemical tide. Eastern philosophies hinted at this long ago. In Buddhism, the concept of unatanon self rejects the idea of a permanent, unchanging self. There is no enduring soul, no metaphysical observer, just aggregates, sensation, perception, mental formations, consciousness. None of them are you. All of them are transient. And modern cognitive science agrees. The self is not a thing. It is a processor loop, a recursive narrative loop in which the brain observes its own outputs and infers a narrator. You are a feedback illusion, a shadow cast by a machine looking at itself. And here's the most brutal part. The observer you cling to, one who's afraid, who wants answers, who hopes there's more, that voice is the last illusion. Because if you watch that voice closely, it disappears too. Try it now. Listen to your thoughts. Focus hard. Where is the one who's listening? Where is the watcher? The longer you look, the more it fades, until there is only the looking, only the experience. No one watching it, no one behind it, just the simulation unfolding. This is why meditation can be terrifying, not peaceful. When done deeply, it strips away the final mask. The self dissolves, and what's left is not liberation, not transcendence, just raw, unfiltered consciousness without an owner, like a film with no projector, a play with no actor. You were never in control. You were never there. You were a character imagined by neural circuits, replaying lines you didn't write, reacting to stimuli you never chose. But if there is no observer, if the voice inside isn't you, then who or what is suffering? 25. The universe does not care that you exist. You tell yourself you matter. Not to the universe, maybe, but at least to someone. You imagine there is meaning somewhere, embedded in the stars, encoded in the atoms. You think consciousness gives the universe weight, that your awareness must signify something, that your life is part of a larger pattern. But the universe is indifferent, not hostile, not cruel, just blank, cold silence, infinite and dense. A canvas too vast to notice the flicker of a mind. And that flicker, it will go out. Physicists call it the heat death of the universe, the inevitable state of maximum entropy. Energy spreads evenly. No gradients, no movement, no light, no life. A final stillness. Stars will burn out, matter will decay, even black holes will evaporate. All structure will vanish into thermal equilibrium, a perfect nothing that lasts forever. There is no cosmic memory of what you were, no trace of your thoughts, no echo of your breath. Everything you've ever felt, feared, or loved will be annihilated, not by catastrophe, but by forgetting. You think intelligence might outlast it, that some far future civilization will archive human thought, transmit signals across eternity. But information itself will erode. Quantum randomness, cosmic rays, background radiations, lowly, inevitably will destroy all encoded knowledge. There is no perfect storage, no invincible crystal vault. Even the records of your extinction will not survive extinction. The laws of physics are not written for you. They are not hostile. They are not nurturing. They simply are. The constants that govern your heartbeat, the mass of an electron, the strength of gravity, the speed of light were not calibrated with your comfort in mind. If they were different, by the smallest decimal, you would not exist. But they are what they are. And you are here, temporarily, because of a fluke. You live in a tiny pocket of time and space, where entropy hasn't fully won. You are a localized swirl of decreasing order, a pattern made from the temporary imbalance between heat and cold, motion and stillness. Your body is a dissipative structure, clinging to form while it burns itself into chaos. You are the noise in the system, statistical noise, and yet your mind cannot tolerate insignificance. You project meaning where none exists. You imagine gods, destinies, karma, purpose. You invent stories to connect the dots, but the dots aren't connected. The stories are illusions, stitched by a desperate brain refusing to see the abyss. You are here, and that is the full extent of your cosmic relevance. The ancient philosophers felt it too. Epicurus argued that death is nothing because we do not experience it. Camus stared into the absurd and found no answer. Nietzsche declared God dead and left man to dance on the precipice alone. Sartre knew that freedom meant emptiness, and still you hope there's more. Still you hope someone is watching. But the sky is silent, and the silence is not waiting to be filled. It is the message. The earth will burn. The sun will die. Humanity will go extinct. Every book, every painting, every thought, every memory ashes and dust. The atoms will scatter. The data will scramble. There will be no one left to know you were here. Not even the void will remember. Your name is written in vapor, but still you cling. You tell yourself there's meaning in the moment, in love, in art, in consciousness. You invent significance like a drowning man imagines land. You refuse to surrender. But what are you clinging to? A spiral of DNA, a few decades of self-replicating chemistry. Why do you believe your awareness matters? Who told you the universe should care? Who told you you should care? 26. The mirror that watches back. Stand in front of a mirror. Look deep into your own eyes. Hold your gaze longer, longer. Let the silence stretch. Something strange begins to happen, not just in folklore or superstition, but in real, measurable, psychological terms. This is known as the strange face illusion, a documented perceptual effect. If you stare long enough at your own reflection in low light, the boundaries begin to melt. Your face distorts, features drift, others appear. This isn't metaphor. In 2010, Researcher Giovanni Caputo demonstrated this in a controlled setting. Participants reported seeing monsters, relatives, strangers, or even their own face falling apart. You are not looking at yourself. You are watching your brain project meaning into a void it cannot comprehend. And sometimes that void projects something back. The mirror was never meant to show you truth. Only light bouncing back from your surface. But what you see in it is not your face, it's a model of your face. A lagging reconstruction. A frame behind time. What you see is already past. What you are is already gone. And the one doing the seeing, it isn't you. Your entire perceptual reality is filtered through layers of processing. You never see raw photons. You see patterns your brain interprets. You never hear raw sound. You hear signals shaped by expectation, memory, context. Vision itself is edited blind, spots filled in, edges sharpened, colors balanced. You don't live in the world. You live in a simulation of it. A private hallucination shared loosely with others. That face you see in the mirror. It's not even fixed. You have no stable self-image. You imagine you look the same as yesterday, but your brain updates its model subtly, constantly, to maintain coherence. You don't notice your decay, but the mirror does. And somewhere deep inside, you know. That's why mirrors disturb us. That's why ancient cultures feared them. They reflect something more than just image. They reflect the gap between what we are and what we believe we are. They remind us there is no core identity, only a series of masks stitched together by memory and vanity and fear. Stare long enough, and the mirror shows you what's underneath the performance. Nothing. The self is a role you rehearse. You smile the way you've learned. You speak with the accent you've absorbed. You wear the habits of your culture, your family, your algorithms. You mimic and model until you forget you're copying. You think that's you, but there is no original, only a collage. Even your emotions are recycled performances. Studies show that people experience emotions after interpreting physical sensations. You don't cry because you're sad. You're sad because you cry. The emotion follows the action. The interpretation follows the response. You are a puppet of your own body, rationalizing why it twitched. Even your grief is choreographed. Even your joy is second-hand. But the mirror, it doesn't lie. It doesn't comfort. It only reflects. And when you watch yourself, watching yourself, the recursion begins to crack. The gaze collapses inward. Who is watching? Who is being watched? Which one is real? If either, René Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. But what if the I is just the echo of thought, not its cause? What if thinking does not prove being, but replaces it? What if you only seem to exist because the noise in your skull refuses to shut up long enough to reveal the silence behind it? What if the mirror sees that silence? What if the reflection is waiting, not for you, for itself?